What if the biggest secret of all wasn't buried deep in history books or locked away in classified files, but hidden right in front of us? What if a place you thought you knew, a landmark, a city, an event we all recognize, carried a story so strange, so quietly suppressed, that few dare to talk about it openly? This isn't folklore. This isn't some ghost tale told around a campfire. This is a real mystery, backed by fragments of evidence, whispered testimonies, and historical oddities that don't quite add up. The truth, as always, is far messier, far stranger, and far more compelling than the sanitized version we're usually told. So today, we're peeling back the curtain on the secret hidden in place/event that nobody talks about. And trust me, once you hear this, you'll never look at it the same way again. Chapter 1. A place that keeps its secrets. Every place has a story, but some places, they feel heavier, almost as if the walls themselves are holding back a truth that can't be spoken. You walk through them, and there's this lingering sense of something missing, like the version you've been told is only half the picture. This particular place, insert chosen place/event, is one of those. On the surface, it seems ordinary, even celebrated. It's the kind of site tourists flock to, where schoolbooks dedicate neat little paragraphs, and where photographs only show smiles, grandeur, or beauty. But hidden beneath that polished image is something altogether different. Locals whisper about events never recorded. Travelers speak of strange encounters that can't be explained. Historians sometimes stumble upon fragments that don't line up with the official narrative. And when those anomalies appear, they're often brushed aside, inconvenient details erased before they can spark questions. What makes this story so haunting isn't just the secret itself, but the way it refuses to vanish. Like a shadow cast in the wrong direction, the mystery lingers no matter how often it's denied or ignored. So why here? Why this place? That's the question that will guide us through this journey. Because the deeper we go, the more it becomes clear. This isn't just history. It's a secret that refuses to stay buried. Chapter 2. The official story everyone knows. Every mystery begins with a version of the truth that's been carefully packaged for the public. In this case, the official story of place/event reads like something pulled straight from a textbook. Neat, structured, and free of controversy. It's the version that children memorize for school exams, that documentaries skim over in a half-hour special, and that tour guides recite with polished smiles. According to this account, the place is exactly what it seems, no more, no less. Every stone, every name, every event is explained in logical sequence, as though history always moves in straight lines. But if you've ever really studied history, you know it rarely behaves so neatly. That's the thing about official stories. They're designed for clarity, not complexity. They're meant to tie up loose ends, to give us closure where none exists. But in smoothing out the narrative, something essential is often left behind. And when you start to pay attention to the gaps, the silences, the contradictions, the details that don't quite fit, you realize the official story isn't wrong, but it's incomplete, like a painting with entire corners missing. So, if this is the version everyone knows, what's the version they don't? That's where the trail begins to twist, and where the whispers start to grow louder. Chapter 3. The vanishing records. Every good mystery has a trail of evidence. But what happens when that trail suddenly disappears? That's exactly what makes place/event so unsettling. Whenever researchers dig too deeply, they often discover nothing. Records that should exist are gone. Archives that should be complete are mysteriously missing key documents. It's as if someone has been quietly erasing history, one page at a time. Some historians claim the gaps are due to accidents, fires in libraries, damaged manuscripts, or simple human error. But here's the strange part. The missing information almost always relates directly to the anomalies, the very questions people have been asking for centuries. It's never the routine details that vanish, only the controversial ones. Convenient, isn't it? Even more suspicious are the testimonies of researchers who swear they once saw documents, only to return later and find them gone. A file misplaced, a record reclassified, a book no longer available. This pattern raises the question, Who benefits from keeping these records hidden? And why go to such lengths to scrub them from existence? If the official story is so airtight, why the need to erase? That silence, that deliberate vanishing, speaks louder than any written record ever could. And it pushes us toward the first true crack in the wall of secrecy. Chapter 4: The First Eyewitness. Every hidden truth begins with someone who dares to say, "I saw it." In the case of PlaceEvent, the first known eyewitness account didn't come from a historian or an official. It came from an ordinary person, someone with no reason to invent a story, and everything to lose by speaking out. Their testimony painted a picture that didn't match the polished narrative we're used to hearing. They described strange occurrences, unsettling details, and moments that defied explanation. It wasn't just what they saw, it was how shaken they were by it. Accounts say their voice trembled, their words careful, as though they knew what they were revealing could never be taken back. At first, people dismissed the witness. After all, one person's story is easy to ignore. But as time went on, their account became harder to bury, especially when others began whispering similar things. What makes this figure so important is not just what they saw, but the courage it took to say it out loud. Because once the first eyewitness speaks, a door opens, and it becomes harder for others to stay silent. In hindsight, that testimony feels less like an isolated story and more like a spark, the first flicker of light exposing the cracks in the official version. Chapter 5: What the Experts Won't Admit. For every strange event, there are experts ready with explanations. But when it comes to PlaceEvent, something curious happens. The experts talk around the mystery rather than through it. They'll acknowledge the inconsistencies, the missing records, the eyewitness accounts, but only to dismiss them with vague reasoning that never quite holds up. It's not that they don't know. These are scholars, scientists, and professionals who've devoted their lives to uncovering truth. But in interviews, papers, or public statements, they often tread carefully. Words like unlikely, probably, or misinterpretation appear again and again, like shields meant to deflect curiosity rather than satisfy it. And here's the strangest part. When pressed for deeper answers, some experts go quiet. They change the subject. They laugh off the question. Or worse, they suggest that it's a waste of time. But why would trained minds avoid a subject unless they knew something too disruptive might surface? History has shown us countless times that institutions protect their narratives. Experts aren't just individuals. They're often tied to universities, museums, or governments that benefit from keeping history clean and uncomplicated. So when the experts won't admit the obvious gaps, it only raises a bigger question. What are they really afraid of? Chapter 6: Clues Hidden in Plain Sight. Sometimes, the greatest secrets aren't buried deep underground or locked away in hidden vaults. They're right in front of us, hiding in plain sight. That's exactly what makes PlaceEvent so fascinating. Look closely, and you'll notice details that don't align with the official story. Symbols carved into stone that don't match the era. Structures facing the wrong direction for practical use. Inscriptions with meanings that have been brushed aside as decorative, when they look more like coded messages. Tourists walk past these details every day, snapping photos without realizing the story they're missing. Historians acknowledge them but quickly fold them into tidy explanations that don't quite convince. Yet the anomalies persist, little whispers carved into the very walls, left by people who perhaps knew the truth would one day be hidden. It's almost as though those who built or recorded this place left breadcrumbs for the future. Tiny clues, daring us to look closer. And when you gather them together, the picture that emerges doesn't fit the neat box of the official version. Instead, it suggests a hidden narrative, one that has been carefully overlooked, yet never erased. Which leads to an unsettling thought. If the clues have been in plain sight all along, maybe we were never meant to find them. Or maybe someone wanted us to. Chapter 7: A Pattern Across History. One secret can be dismissed as coincidence. But when the same pattern repeats across time and geography, it's no longer coincidence. It's a clue. And PlaceEvent is not the only case. Look at other locations where history feels incomplete. Ancient monuments whose construction defies logic. cities where records conveniently stop during crucial moments. Events remembered one way publicly, but whispered about differently in private. The similarities are striking. Again and again, we see the same ingredients. Missing documents, altered timelines, stories that survive only through oral traditions, and eyewitnesses whose voices were ignored or discredited. It's almost like an invisible hand has been at work, trimming the edges of history so it fits neatly into the versions we're allowed to learn. Why? Some suggest it's control, keeping societies unified under a single narrative. Others whisper about power, that hidden knowledge, if revealed, could shift everything we believe about ourselves. Whatever the reason, the pattern is undeniable. And that's what makes the secret of place/event so chilling. It's not just an isolated case. It fits into a global tapestry of hidden truths, woven through centuries, which forces us to ask, how much of the world's history is truly ours to know, and how much has been quietly taken away? Chapter 8: The Mysterious Silence. What's more suspicious than the strange events surrounding place/event? The silence that follows them, not just from officials or historians, but from the very institutions that should be asking questions. Think about it. We live in a world where people argue over the smallest historical details, yet certain aspects of this place are met with nothing. No debates, no headlines, no documentaries diving deep, just silence. And silence in history is rarely accidental. It can be the result of fear, suppression, or an unspoken agreement that some things are better left untouched. After all, controversy stirs curiosity, and curiosity leads to questions. Questions that might tear down the clean version of events that authorities prefer. The strange part? Even when whispers do surface, in journals, local traditions, or leaked documents, they fade quickly. Like someone hit mute on the conversation before it could gain traction. It leaves us wondering, who benefits from that silence? Is it about protecting reputations? Preserving tourism? Or is the truth behind place/event so disruptive that acknowledging it would unravel more than just a single story? Sometimes what people refuse to say tells us more than what they do. And here, the silence is deafening. Chapter 9: Lost Voices. Every mystery has its truth-tellers, the people who dare to speak when everyone else stays quiet. In the story of place/event, those voices existed too. But over time, most of them were silenced, forgotten, or erased. Some were locals, passing down stories that didn't match the official accounts. Others were researchers who stumbled onto something that challenged the narrative. And a few were outright whistleblowers, risking credibility, careers, even safety to share what they knew. But here's the tragedy. Their words rarely survived intact. Journals disappeared. Interviews were cut short. Letters were lost in accidents. And when some did manage to surface, they were often mocked, dismissed as conspiracy, or buried beneath the noise of more acceptable history. What's haunting is that the fragments we do have often share striking similarities. Different voices, different times. Yet the same unusual details, the same questions nobody could answer. It's almost as if these voices were echoing the same truth across generations, hoping someone would finally listen. Instead, most of them faded into obscurity, their warnings swallowed by silence. And yet, even in their absence, they left behind a trail. A whisper, faint but insistent, urging us to keep digging. Because the past doesn't always stay buried. Sometimes it waits for the right moment to be heard again. Chapter 10: A Shadow in Power. Behind every missing record, every silenced voice, and every carefully polished narrative, there's usually a hand guiding the cover. In the case of place/event, many believe that hand belongs to a shadow of power, not a single person but a network of influence. Could be government officials eager to maintain control of history. It could be wealthy benefactors who profit from the safe version of events. Or perhaps it's academic institutions, whose reputations depend on certainty, not controversy. Whatever the form, the result is the same. The truth is managed, filtered, and sometimes buried. The strangest part? We often catch glimpses of this shadow. A sudden retraction of a news story, a historian who quietly abandons their research, A museum piece removed with little explanation. These are not random accidents. They're signs of pressure, subtle but undeniable. Power doesn't always silence with violence. More often, it silences with influence, the promise of funding, the threat of ridicule, or the weight of authority. And in the story of PlaceEvent, those pressures seem to have worked all too well. But here's the irony. The harder power tries to erase the secret, the more suspicious the erasure becomes. And suspicion, once planted, can be more powerful than any truth. Chapter 11. Unexplainable Events. Every hidden story has its breaking point, moments too strange to sweep under the rug. In the case of PlaceEvent, these moments are the unexplainable events that continue to defy logic, even centuries later. Eyewitnesses describe things that don't belong in the timeline. Lights in the sky before electricity existed, structures built with techniques supposedly unknown at the time, or sounds that no natural source could produce. Some visitors report a chilling sensation, as if they're being watched, even in empty spaces. Others recall equipment malfunctioning in ways that science can't quite explain. Skeptics argue these are exaggerations or tricks of the mind. But when different people across different eras describe the same phenomena, the dismissals start to feel flimsy. Are all these witnesses imagining the same details? Or is there something happening that refuses to fit within our rules of reality? What makes these events so frustrating and so captivating is the lack of resolution. Every explanation seems to fall short, leaving only questions. And in history, unanswered questions are the most dangerous kind, because they suggest there's still a piece missing, still a truth waiting to be uncovered. And perhaps, just perhaps, these unexplainable events are the echoes of that truth, bleeding into the world we think we understand. Chapter 12. Science Meets Mystery. Science is supposed to give us answers. Equations, experiments, and evidence, tools designed to strip away uncertainty. But when it comes to PlaceEvent, even science struggles to make sense of what's been uncovered. Take the architecture, for example. Measurements suggest precision beyond what tools of the era should have allowed. Geological surveys reveal materials sourced from locations miles away, with no clear explanation for how they were transported. Carbon dating sometimes produces results that don't align with the accepted timeline. Instead of clarity, each test only raises more questions. Physicists and archaeologists occasionally admit the anomalies are real, but they stop short of offering conclusions. Why? Because science can only explain what fits within known laws, and PlaceEvent seems to dance on the edge of those laws, defying them in subtle but undeniable ways. Some researchers propose groundbreaking theories. Lost technologies, forgotten civilizations, or natural phenomena we've yet to understand. Others warn against speculation, fearful of being ridiculed by their peers. And so, the mystery remains suspended, dangling between the known and the unknowable. But here's the irony. When science collides with mystery, it doesn't weaken the unknown. It strengthens it, because the moment logic fails to provide answers, the door to something extraordinary swings wide open. Chapter 13. The Tourist's Blindfold. Thousands visit PlaceEvent. Every year, snapping photos, buying souvenirs, and listening to rehearsed tour guide scripts. But here's the unsettling truth. Most of them never actually see what's in front of them. It's not their fault. Tourism is built to entertain, not to challenge. Visitors are shown the postcard version, the neat, digestible story that fits into a brochure. The uncomfortable questions, the eerie anomalies, the whispered contradictions, those are left out, hidden behind velvet ropes and carefully worded plaques. It's like being handed a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Sure, you can see the general picture, but the gaps are where the real story hides. And when you look closer, you notice the polished narrative doesn't quite match the cracks in the walls, the unusual alignments, or the artifacts that don't belong. Some locals argue this is intentional. After all, how would most tourists react if they were confronted with the possibility that everything they thought they knew about this place was wrong? Would they keep coming back? Or would the unease drive them away? The tourist's blindfold is comfortable, safe, and profitable. But for those who dare to lift it, the world of place/event becomes something entirely different and far more disturbing. Chapter 14: Strange Patterns in History. History isn't random. It's a series of echoes, patterns that repeat, sometimes centuries apart, almost like the universe is trying to tell us something. Place/event fits into this eerie cycle more than most people realize. Look closely and you'll see it. The dates that reappear, the tragedies that mirror earlier ones, the figures who rise and fall in uncanny rhythm, as if they're playing roles in a script written long before they were born. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the same numbers, symbols, and events keep surfacing, it begins to feel less like chance and more like design. Even ancient records hint at this. Chroniclers whispered about cycles of power, destruction, and rebirth tied to place/event. And modern researchers? Some claim the evidence is overwhelming, that hidden within the timelines are codes, signals pointing to a deeper truth humanity has yet to grasp. Skeptics argue it's pattern-seeking, the human brain trying to force meaning onto chaos. But ask yourself this: why do these coincidences align so perfectly, time and time again? Why does history, when viewed through the lens of place/event, resemble a spiral, endlessly repeating, but always tightening toward some unknown center? The past isn't dead here. It's alive, pulsing, repeating, daring us to recognize it before it happens again. Chapter 15: The Cover UPS. Every mystery has two parts: what happened and what we're told happened. Place/event is no exception. In fact, the deeper you dig, the more you realize that cover-ups aren't the exception here, they're the rule. Documents vanish from archives. Reports get misfiled. Eyewitnesses suddenly change their stories. And when journalists ask uncomfortable questions, they're met with silence, denial, or a flat-out rewrite of the official narrative. Convenient, isn't it? Take the strange incident of insert relevant detail tied to place/event. At first, locals described something extraordinary: sights, sounds, and movements that defied explanation. Yet within weeks, the official version painted it as nothing more than a misunderstanding. The media followed suit, and soon, the truth dissolved into rumor. Why the need to hide? Some argue it's about control. Others believe it's fear, that acknowledging the truth would unravel far too many other accepted stories. And then there's the possibility that those in power themselves don't fully understand what's happening, and would rather bury it than admit weakness. But cover-ups leave traces. A redacted page here, a conflicting testimony there. And those faint fingerprints tell us one thing: the truth was dangerous enough to be hidden. Which begs the question, what would happen if it ever came out? Chapter 16: The Whistleblowers. Every cover-up eventually meets resistance. And in the case of place/event, that resistance came in the form of whistleblowers. Brave individuals who risked their reputations, careers, even their safety to reveal what others wanted buried. Some were insiders. Archivists, researchers, even government employees who stumbled across files they weren't supposed to see. Others were locals. Witnesses whose stories didn't match the official script and who refused to stay quiet. Their accounts often shared eerie consistencies, details too specific to be coincidence. One former worker described entire boxes of documents disappearing overnight. Another swore they were pressured to sign non-disclosure agreements after encountering something beyond explanation. And then there are the anonymous letters, slipped to journalists and investigators, hinting at truths too dangerous to say aloud. But being a whistleblower comes at a cost. Many faced smear campaigns. Some lost their jobs. A few simply vanished. It's a chilling reminder of the stakes involved. When the truth threatens the foundation of what people believe, silencing the messenger becomes priority number one. Yet, despite the risks, whispers keep leaking out. And each revelation chips away at the carefully constructed facade, leaving us to wonder, if even fragments of what these whistleblowers say are true, what does the full, unedited story look like? Chapter 17: The Global Connection. At first glance, place/event feels like a local anomaly, something strange contained within its own borders. But the deeper you go, the more it begins to resemble a thread in a much larger tapestry, woven across continents and centuries. Symbols found here echo designs carved into temples thousands of miles away. Legends told by elders mirror myths from cultures that supposedly had no contact with each other. Even the timing of certain unexplained events lines up eerily with incidents recorded on the other side of the world. Coincidence, or evidence of a shared, hidden network of knowledge? Some researchers suggest that what happens at place/event isn't isolated at all. It's part of a global pattern, a web of phenomena that connects sacred sites, mysterious ruins, and recurring anomalies. It's almost as if ancient civilizations were aware of something we've forgotten, something that linked their worlds together in ways modern science still struggles to explain. And here's the kicker. When you map these places, strange alignments begin to emerge. Lines that connect distant lands, converging like points in a code we've yet to decipher. So the question becomes, is place/event just one strange story among many? Or is it the missing key that ties all the others together? Chapter 18: Technology versus Mystery. In an age where satellites can zoom into your backyard and AI can predict storms before they form, you'd think mysteries like those surrounding place/event would have been solved by now. Yet, the opposite seems true. The closer our technology looks, the stranger the anomalies become. High-resolution scans reveal structures buried beneath the surface that shouldn't exist. Thermal imaging detects heat signatures where nothing should be alive. Even advanced sonar and radar bounce back results that don't make sense. Readings that experts quietly admit defy conventional explanation. Technology has given us sharper eyes and stronger tools, but instead of providing answers, it has only deepened the questions. Each discovery spawns more confusion, as though place/event is deliberately resisting categorization. And maybe that's the point. Perhaps this mystery doesn't fit neatly into our frameworks of science and logic. Perhaps technology, powerful as it is, can only describe the surface, while the true nature of place/event lies in realms our machines weren't built to measure. Still, researchers keep trying, driven by both curiosity and obsession. Because if technology can eventually pierce this veil, what it uncovers might not just change our understanding of this one location. It might upend everything we thought we knew about the world itself. Chapter 19: The Human Factor. Behind every mystery lies one constant: people. And when it comes to place/event, the human factor may be the most unpredictable and revealing piece of the puzzle. Fear, belief, ambition, and greed have all shaped the way this phenomenon is understood and remembered. Locals interpret it through the lens of culture and faith, weaving it into myths passed down for generations. Scientists dissect it through data and theory, stripping it of mystique but rarely of contradiction. Governments, they weigh its potential for power, secrecy, or control. But here's the twist. Human perception might not just distort the mystery, it might fuel it. Witnesses report seeing different things depending on their expectations. Groups visiting the same site often walk away with conflicting stories. Could our own minds be interacting with the phenomenon, shaping what manifests? Psychologists call this the observer effect, but locals describe it more poetically. The place reveals itself differently to each who enter. Maybe the truth isn't one version or the other. Maybe it's all of them at once. And that's what makes the human factor so fascinating. The mystery of place/event isn't just about what's out there. It's also about what's inside us, how we perceive, interpret, and respond when confronted with the unknown. Chapter 20: The Skeptics. Of course, not everyone buys into the enigma of place/event. Skeptics argue that what many call unexplained is simply misunderstood, the product of flawed research, folklore, or outright exaggeration. And in some cases, they're right. They point to natural explanations, geological quirks, atmospheric illusions, even psychological phenomena like mass hysteria. To them, the so-called mysteries are nothing more than human imagination dressed up as supernatural intrigue. After all, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. And much of the evidence here is blurry photos, contradictory testimony, and ancient texts open to interpretation. But here's the problem. Skepticism, while healthy, doesn't erase the anomalies. Dismissing every strange event as coincidence or delusion feels almost too easy, especially when credible witnesses, from scientists to military personnel, report experiences that don't fit neatly into rational boxes. In fact, some skeptics become fascinated in spite of themselves. They arrive determined to debunk only to leave with more questions than answers. And a few even cross the line, shifting from hardened critics to reluctant believers after confronting something they can't explain. Skeptics serve an important role, keeping theories grounded and wild claims in check. But when the unexplained keeps piling up, one has to wonder, are they protecting truth or protecting themselves from a reality too unsettling to accept? Chapter 21: The Unanswered Questions. For every theory, for every explanation, there always seem to be more questions lingering in the shadows of place/event. And these aren't small, trivial questions. They're the kind that gnaw at the edges of logic, refusing to go away. Why do certain events only happen at specific times, often tied to odd celestial alignments? Why do so many witnesses, from different cultures and generations, describe eerily similar experiences? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why does so much effort go into burying or discrediting the evidence, instead of simply proving it wrong? Even modern technology, with all its sophistication, can't seem to resolve these riddles. Scans detect anomalies, but no one can explain them. Documents surface only to be quickly sealed or discredited. Whistleblowers speak out, then disappear into silence. The more we push for clarity, the more elusive the truth becomes. Maybe the unanswered questions are the point. Maybe this phenomenon was never meant to be neatly solved, at least not with the tools we currently have. Or maybe the answers are already known, locked away in places the public will never see. And so, the mystery lingers, not because no one is asking questions, but because the answers seem designed to slip through our fingers, just out of reach. Chapter 22: Pop Culture and Myths. Whenever a mystery refuses to be solved, it eventually seeps into culture, and place/event has become a legend in its own right. Movies, TV shows, novels, even video games borrow from its lore, reshaping the story into entertainment that travels far beyond its original setting. But here's the catch. The line between truth and myth blurs quickly. A single rumor retold enough times becomes fact in the eyes of the public. Hollywood dramatizations amplify the spectacle, adding monsters, curses, or conspiracies that never existed. Soon, it's nearly impossible to separate what's authentic from what's been manufactured for thrills. Still, myths have power. They keep the mystery alive, passed from one generation to the next. They inspire curiosity, drawing people to dig deeper, even if they start with a Netflix show or a viral TikTok clip. In a strange way, pop culture keeps the phenomenon relevant, while also distracting from the raw, unsettling truths buried underneath. The danger, though, is complacency. When something is treated as just another spooky story, the urgency to investigate it seriously fades. The real unanswered questions get lost beneath layers of fiction, shrugged off as entertainment instead of evidence. And maybe that's exactly how the mystery survives, hidden in plain sight, disguised as a story we think we already know. Chapter 23: When Science Meets Belief. Science and belief are often framed as opposites, one grounded in data, the other rooted in faith. But when it comes to place/event, the two collide in fascinating, sometimes uncomfortable ways. Scientists arrive with instruments and formulas, trying to measure and categorize. Believers, on the other hand, see place/event as sacred, a place where the invisible world bleeds into the visible. Both groups describe real experiences, but their interpretations couldn't be more different. Take the unexplained lights reported over the area. Researchers suggest atmospheric plasma, seismic activity, or electromagnetic interference. Believers call them signs, manifestations of spirits, guardians, or even warnings. Who's right? Maybe both, maybe neither. But the fact remains. The lights are there, witnessed by hundreds, recorded on cameras, and yet still unexplained. This clash creates tension. Too much reliance on science, and you risk dismissing experiences that don't fit neatly into graphs. Too much reliance on belief, and you lose the discipline needed to sift truth from imagination. But in the end, the mystery seems to thrive in the space between the two, where data and wonder coexist, and where explanations feel just as elusive as the phenomena themselves. Perhaps place/event isn't asking us to choose science or belief, but to realize that the deepest mysteries may require both. Chapter 24: The Legacy of Mystery. Every story has an ending, but mysteries like place/event never truly close. They linger, echoing across time, leaving behind a legacy that's as much about us as it is about the phenomenon itself. Generations from now, people will still talk about what happened here. They'll debate the same questions, argue over the same evidence, and add new layers of speculation. Maybe technology will one day unravel the secrets, or maybe the mystery will remain, reminding us that not everything can be conquered by logic and science. But here's the important part. The legacy isn't just in unanswered questions. It's in the curiosity it sparks. Mysteries like place/event push us to think bigger, to wonder, to imagine. They keep us from settling into the comfortable belief that we already know everything there is to know about our world. Whether you see it as a cover-up, a cosmic riddle, or just a trick of perception, one fact can't be denied. Place/event has changed the way countless people see reality, and that, in itself, is powerful. So maybe the greatest legacy of this mystery is that it keeps the flame of wonder alive, forcing us to admit that the universe is still far stranger, far deeper, and far more mysterious than we dare to believe.